Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the number one podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood flooring, and sawmill industry. I'm your host, Steve from Acres of Timber. Each week, we feature various wood business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe. We share their stories, paths, insights so that you can network, learn, and grow your own wood business. Thank you so much for listening. Now enjoy the episode. The Woodpreneur podcast is proudly sponsored by Acres CRM. Acres CRM is the wood industry's only customer relationship management software dedicated to helping you automate your sales and marketing so that you can focus on serving your customers and growing your business. You can visit acresoftimber.com to learn more and to schedule a demo. Once again, that's acresoftimber.com. Hey, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. This is your host, Steve. Today's guest is Austin Aaron from Dancing Greens out in Boulder, Colorado. How you doing, Austin?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. We met because you came to the Woodpreneur Denver meetup, which is pretty awesome. And we got to chat there, and you started telling me about your business. And one of the things that you told me is that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you started in 2008. Is that when you started?
Yeah, that's right.
So you're an OG. And I was like, you know what? We don't really have a lot of OGs on the podcast, right? Like, 10 plus years. I think any old, because you're a fairly young guy. Like anybody older, they're not really like 15, 20 years. They're not really messing with social media or going out to meetups. You know what I mean? So I was like, I gotta get you on. So tell everybody about Dancing Greens. What's the origin story? How'd you get started?
Yeah. It was the year that the recession started, actually, but I had kind of just started to get interested in woodworking and had gotten into it by way of a little bit of like carving spoons and whatnot, and just had more ideas and started making more things and trying new stuff out, and worked for some other people just a little bit until the phones quit ringing that summer, and then I was kind of on my own, so I was just started buying more tools and doing what I could to make it work at the time. I had a lot of furniture ideas for whatever reason. I just was really interested in that and started to make some things that I thought would show off what I was capable of, which I was kind of figuring out, as I went.
How'd you learn?
Just doing it, I worked for a guy doing some barnwood furniture. It was all mortise and tenon joinery and whatnot, and dados and whatnot. So that gave me some confidence early on, I think, to try out some stuff. But I also just, had a book or two. So you learned this really technical approach to building things. You had some inspiration. You're like, I think I could do that. And that's that's cool. Yeah. I kind of was like full of these ideas of making wilder pieces and didn't really exactly know what was possible, but I didn't understand why furniture needed to be as simple and kind of what I thought to be boring as it often is. So I kind of wanted to spice it up a little bit.
So what were those first couple of years like? So you said you started during the recession, which is great.
Yeah.
Because the pandemic is like the recession of this decade. Right. Yeah. So what was it like to start something when the world was falling apart and people were jumping out of the windows?
Oh God.
I didn't mean to say that so flippantly, but like, yeah. 2008 was bad.
It was bad. Yeah. I mean, I worked for like 5 or 6 weeks for this guy doing this barnwood stuff, and we were busy. I built dining table and coffee tables, dressers, vanities, all in that short period of time. And then come July that summer, the phone just turned off. And
Mm,
that happened to a lot of people. And for the next, like, particularly 2 years at least, but the next 4 years were slow.
yeah.
And
How'd you supplement?
I was like Craigslisting for gigs and like staying in people's decks and doing trim and whatever I could find.
Whatever you could find.
Yeah.
But was Dancing Grains like a thing then? Was it like a name, incorporated bank
It
account? Like,
was, yeah, it was an entity, and um, had a bank account, and got paid a little bit here and there.
but you
um,
but you went in on this idea. You went on in on this business, and you did whatever you needed to do to make it work.
yeah. Yeah. And it was rough. It was like very slow and steady for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Uh, I think 2014, 13, 14 is when it really started to get a little more traction. It
What
was
what
like
what
my,
was that? What was that first thing where you like that kind of what do you remember that exact moment where you're like, oh wow, oh I don't have to go to Craigslist anymore.
um, yeah, I mean, I think the first job that I got that I was like, oh my God, this is like
Mm,
the start of the good stuff, was like, I got into this little eco home store, and they did all things eco for your house, from like cabinetry to like products you use on a daily basis.
mm-hmm.
Um, and a couple people found me in there and had me do some furniture, and one lady paid me to do a kitchen, which for me at the time
A
felt
lot of money.
huge. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it was like $13,000 or something, like
Yeah.
$12,000. It was like tiny little job.
Crazy underbid.
Yeah, exactly. I think I
Yeah.
12 bucks an hour on that one.
You're like, okay, I could pay myself hourly. Here's the material costs, and you're trying
Yeah,
to like make them happy. And you're like,
yeah.
oh my God, I might as well be a valet parker. Right?
Totally. I could go work at Home Depot for this
I
one.
can work at Home Depot for 12 hours. I probably
Yeah.
make more money and not have as much stress. Um, that's cool. And then so you had the job, you got into the eco-friendly store. I mean, you're in Boulder too, so it's pretty hippy dippy there, right? I didn't
Yeah. I
again,
mean,
I
people are
feel like
into
I'm
that kind
offending
of
people
thing.
today, but people are into that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this town's all about, you know, sustainability and responsibility of, whatever
Mm-hmm.
genre you want to talk about, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you leverage that to continue growing, like that moment? Like what was the thing that happened after that you did in your business? Like, were the first big investment? Was it a tool? Was it an extra help? Was it an accountant? Like, what'd you
Um,
do?
well, actually, in 2011, for the first 6 months of the year, I was working in Anchorage. I had gone up there to visit an ex's family, and we met a neighbor who was a timber framer. And I was super interested in his shop, and we talked for hours and looked at all the different tools, which is a very different tool set for that trade. But he ended up inviting me up to work up there. And so I got to spend 6 months in a shop with, four guys just cutting 12 by 12 timbers, mortise and tenon stuff, really weird, funky joinery. It was cool. Um, and I just watched my boss up there invest and reinvest in tools. And, every week he was coming back with stuff that was helping us do our job better. And I think that got me over the hump of commitment. And I basically came back, and on the way back from the airport, I like stopped and bought some tools and was like, all right, I'm like 100% committed to this. I'm not doing the half in, half out thing.
Which, like in anything, when you fully commit, what happens after that?
Works way better.
It works way better. Don't you feel so much better about yourself and like,
Totally.
right? And
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think a lot of people talk about this too, but when you commit, there's like this thing that happens when you're talking to a potential customer. It's almost like you transfer your confidence and your commitment level to them, and
for
they
sure.
feel it too, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know that you're in it to win it, and they know they can count on you, and um, there's no reservation in your voice, however
Mm-hmm.
subtle it may be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you started investing in tools. What happened after that?
um, I think for about the next 6 months, I shared a shop with somebody, a good
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine, and I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm ready to get a commercial shop. I need to do this. I need more space. I need to really dive in. And so I got my first commercial shop and got it all set up, had space finally. It could, I was making like big sliding barn doors and dining tables and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So I really needed that um, to be able to like lay out and set up and get everything, going the way I needed it.
So you invested in a shop. Like, how big was the shop, and was that scary to commit to?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2,000 square feet. I was sharing it with one other woodworker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it felt huge to me.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of went half and half space wise in it and had our own tools for the most part, shared a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that way we could have our workflow, how we
Yeah.
needed it and whatnot. But um, yeah, I think rent was like $1,000 for the whole thing back
Wow.
then, which is fascinating compared to what I'm paying now. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was like $500 a month, but it was the biggest bill I'd ever had. So
What's crazy? You know the feeling of, and I tell some of my clients this was like, whatever your ideal revenue target goal is on a monthly basis, imagine yourself actually spending that in a month. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like in terms of your expenses, right? Like, I have clients there or people, they're like, oh man, I got 10 grand a month in salaries or whatever, for their team. I was like,
they-
do you remember the day when you wanted was 10 grand a month? Right? Like, wasn't
right,
that like a crazy, like little mind shift, right?
right.
Which is nuts. So how long did you stay in that other shop?
That was a lesson in partnerships, to be honest. um, so that only lasted like half a year or so, and then I got my current shop. I got one of the units that I'm in now, and I've been in there for 10 years or so, or yeah, at least 10 years now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so I've added on space as we've gotten bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's very cool. So what's your business look like now? What are your main sort of product services? And how big is your team?
We are about 10 people, give or take,
Okay.
now. And yeah, we're building furniture
Hmm.
largely. We
Collection or commission?
we're doing both. So
Okay.
we're like, slow and steady, organic growth has always been the process. So we've been developing furniture lines for a few years now. And we've got a lot of that stuff in our showroom. And
Mhm.
we've been making a big push to get photography and details all in order so that we can have that all online. And it's
Apparently, because your photographs are amazing.
oh, thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's definitely everybody go to Dancing Grains on Instagram at Dancing Grains with an S at the end. And it is yeah, so it's like so all those photos are in your showroom.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is in there. There's some on Instagram, there's some of the custom, funkier,
Hmm.
unique things also. But yeah, we try to have a pretty solid array of what we do in our space on Pearl Street in Boulder. So
So you have your
uh,
shop and now you also have a retail location, a retail showroom.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we have 5,000 square feet downtown Boulder.
great.
And it's just an awesome spot to be able to show people what we do because, you know, a lot of people are buying online and stuff like that. And it's just not, I don't think it's the way to do it. And so we hear a lot from people that they're so excited that they can actually touch things and see up close what they're like and,
Hmm.
really like understand the proportions and the details and stuff. So,
Yeah, that what brought the decision for that, right? Because I'm sure you could have like just chilled in your workshop and just done that, right?
yeah, definitely could have. Yeah, I think I've been trying to get to a point where we get to really build um, our furniture lines. I feel like
Hmm.
I've put a lot of effort and had a lot of inspiration around the designs, and that's what I've really wanted to do and spend time on. And it's about like the craft, and doing things that I think are really valuable and a good way to spend our lives, basically. And the gallery allows us to show what we want to build, kind of thing. So, um, as opposed to the custom route, which is maybe you have some good ideas, you can try them on different clients for size and,
Yeah,
hopefully they match, but your percentage chance as opposed to just putting it out there, thousands of people
sure,
see it and then they get to pick it.
for sure. What what's your role like now when you have 10 people versus where you were before? So like are you what's your title?
I think on my email signature it says um, founder and designer. Um,
Okay, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm curious like how has your role changed? Are you like Mark Jupiter status where you're like, you got like teams of people building and you're like visionary, or you still like in it?
I do a lot of different stuff now. Like I think a lot of business owners do.
Hmm.
Um, gradually, trying to assign my job away to to other people so that I can find enough time to do, really what I want, which is like design and steer the ship in a kind
Hmm.
of more broad sense, and
Yeah.
also like reclaim the custom, funky, artistic, exciting work in
Yeah.
the is what I would really like to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 And so these 10 people, what are they working on different custom jobs and product lines?
yeah. So I got like a gallery manager and
Gotcha.
someone who's helping with design and
Like on the computer?
yeah, like drafting, I guess you'd
Yeah,
call it,
sure. CAD
adapting
stuff.
drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do a lot of that still. I do a lot of original design. Um, But then she also helps with like web stuff and presence and, all that.
Like marketing, website, social media type stuff,
Photo editing and all
photo
that.
editing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then everyone else is like woodworkers and metal fabricators, finishers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Do you get stress thinking about keeping everybody employed?
Never.
do you ever bug out and you're like, oh my God, all these people are here because I had a thought in my head? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah. I definitely, sometimes I've got 100 irons in the fire and I'm like, wow, what am I doing? What did I choose this?
Did you
But
choose this? Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, I like uh immediately after that, I'm like, oh my God, I have like a dozen more things that I must do. Like I really want to do this. So it's kind of a funny conflict.
So you can be specific or you cannot be specific about this, but I was talking to somebody today, who one of my clients who wanted to make a big investment in a property. And this, when you have a good place to like do your work, like you'll feel at ease. And it doesn't look like it's going to come through. And it's like really messing with their head. You know what I mean? As to the long-term viability of their business. Did you have a point where you thought you were going to lose everything?
Um, I've honestly done pretty well to keep afloat. And there have been a couple times when I think like the pandemic, I had a little bit of like uh-oh, like this could
Hmm.
get real bad real fast,
Yeah.
when it first started and we had jobs on the books and I was like, well, we definitely have like a few months for sure that we're
Hmm.
good. And if we go a couple months, few months after that and doesn't get good, like it could be a big problem. But
Yeah.
um, fortunately that all came around.
Yeah. And everybody
Yeah.
decided they wanted to do stuff in their house. Yeah.
Exactly.
What,
Yeah.
but did you have any moments where you're like, uh-oh, like this could get a little swirly beyond the pandemic or in the early years?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the whole entire early years in
That those
general,
first
kind
six
of like
years, right? Yeah.
it's for a while.
I mean, from what I'm listening to your story, though, it kind of sounds like you had this long-term vision, but you played the long game. Like you did the thing in Alaska, you stained decks, you did Craigslist, like, but you just kept at it and you didn't, you said from 2008 to 2014, you just kind of did whatever you need to do. So there wasn't necessarily that pressure to go big early, right?
Yeah. I think there was like a combination of things at play. And it was like one, I was in my early 20s and I was figuring out who I was
Yeah.
first and coming to grips with what my career was going to be, which I had no inkling, before that I would do anything like this. I
Mm-hmm.
was interested in art and stuff, but I just never thought I would do this.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, so I was figuring a lot of stuff out, and I think that played into the slow and steady thing. And I think
Yeah. Yeah.
as that pace started, it just kept on over time, and it became
You know
about
what?
banking growth and all that.
Honestly, I think there's a benefit too. Like you started when there was really no social media either. Like it was like early. So
Yeah.
you didn't have like the whole FOMO and see like the cooperate, like the competitiveness and seeing what other people, which is kind of like a mindset thing. So it's like when you're playing your own game, you can go at whatever pace you want.
Right.
It kind of
Yeah.
sounds like that's what you did, right?
It is what I did. Yeah. And I was I was pretty relentless about sticking to the track of what I really wanted to do, which
Yeah.
was build unique, really well-made furniture,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just taking on tons of jobs, just to make money or whatever. I didn't really want to just be like a cabinet maker or a finished carpenter or whatever. I wanted
Sure.
to be a woodworker.
Sure. Sure. What how are you getting most of your leads and customers now? Like what's your main source?
The gallery is it at this point, it's very
Yeah.
public. So we get a
Yeah.
lot of walk-in traffic.
That's
But
cool.
for years it was just relationships really like if you look at percentage on the books, it was like return customers, if they were just individuals that came back multiple times or designers or contractors that we did a lot of work with.
Mhm.
But it's
So
about like, you have a relationship with these people, they trust you,
yeah,
what they care about and don't, and it makes it
yeah,
easy.
that's cool. So really the gallery in a high populated area along with the style of your work that really resonated with the demographics of where you are has kind of been a little bit of your secret sauce.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, trying to like really curate things for people. And I mean, Boulder's
Mm-hmm.
a good town for this. People
Yeah,
want what we do here.
sure, sure. And your did we talk about this? Like the urban lumber stuff is have you gotten into that at all?
Yeah, we've got a couple
Mm-hmm.
sawmills and we mill logs, and we also buy other urban stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we buy slabs from other states as well to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard to keep all the different gears turning in a business all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's cool. What's the future look like for you?
well, we're ever more pointed toward really defining our collections, of
Mm-hmm.
furniture, our designs and lines,
Mm-hmm.
and simplifying down to doing that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of weeding out some of the custom projects that aren't really quite as curated and tailored, to the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so awesome. Yeah, your work is beautiful, man. And it's nicely curated.
Thank you.
And I could really, really tell the amount of attention that goes into how you think about your work and how you present it. And I think it's no surprise that you're doing really well.
Thank you.
And like you know your audience. Um, so tell me, so this is a part of the show where I help you with any marketing or business advice. So tell me, is there a challenge that you need to think through or work on that I could help you with?
Um, I think if there's one challenge that has been present longer than any, it
Mm-hmm.
is probably um, hiring my job away.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
delegating work is probably, I put a ton of effort into trying to get out of the way and not being involved in every single tedious aspect of the business. But
Yeah.
still, like delegating work is
It's really hard. Yeah.
killer.
Yeah. That's a hard one, especially as a person, you're like, I'd rather do it than teach somebody to do it because it's easier to do it myself, right? Like,
Yeah,
because
the
it
startup process for teaching is
is
very.
hard. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you, I mean, I feel like I've grown teams, um, grown companies through people and even have learned a lot in the process. And one of the things that I have learned is um for one is think about the things. So like delegation is a muscle that you kind of need to continuously develop. And
Right.
so the first thing is like, what are the things that you ultimately want to do? It's like kind of writing down on a sheet of paper. What are the things that you will ultimately, that's the only thing that you want to do is this, that you write that down. And then there are things that you have to do, but don't really want to, right? That's another column.
Right. Totally.
And then there's another column of things that you don't want to absolutely do at all, ever, like ever. And then prioritize those things.
Yeah.
And then right after that, like, so, it's funny. I have somebody on my team at Acres of Timber, my account manager. We're working, this is going to be our 5-year anniversary. And she was like, hey, I talked to her this morning and I said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I'd much rather talk on the phone than write an email, right? Like that's just me. And she
Sure.
goes, oh, I know that. I said, but do you know why I'm like that? And she goes, no. I said, because sometimes it's really hard for me to literally put what's in my head down on paper. Like it's hard for me to do it. Right.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things that we have conditioned ourselves in our business to do. They're really hard to do, but you already know how to do them. Like those are the things that you should just get off of your plate because they take your emotional energy away from everything else.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes that thing could be email. Like,
Mm.
I don't like email. I prefer text, but you can't really run a multi-million dollar company by text messaging, right? Like it's just hard. And
Right.
so one thing that you can do is like have somebody go in and check your emails and flag things. And then maybe they text it to you like this needs a response, right? Like that's one thing. Another thing that you could delegate is like, I mean, and you probably started to do this is like if you have a smaller shop, sanding. You don't need to do a sand. Sanding is a $15 an hour job when your brain is charging $200 an hour, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so start to think about like those types. But the next the ninja level delegation is where you start to create mini handbooks
Yeah.
and where you take one day a week and for 2 to 3 hours, you just literally start documenting things,
Mm-hmm.
different aspects of your job. It's like,
Right.
okay, so this is how I deal with customers. This is how I deal with this problem. This is how I do. And then you can take like a Zoom like this, or you take a screen recording thing and you literally record it and explain how you would deal with these sorts of issues, or you turn the computer on and you do a screen share of how you do the thing
Mm.
and you literally put it into a Google Doc and number them. That's ninja level.
Yeah.
And then when somebody gets hired, you're like, listen, watch this stuff and ask me any questions on how to do it. That's ninja level. I've built companies based off of Google Docs and screen share recordings of me explaining things to people. Be like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that was really helpful. And then you're like, and then you have them do the task and say, hey, were my instructions clear? And they say, no, but you missed this step. All right, great. Now you record an updated version of this and add it to the Google Doc.
Mm.
And that's how you're going to get from 10 people to 20 people,
Right. I
you
like
know?
that. I like the idea of review time comes up in June with all my employees. It'd be a good thing to like get them to describe what their job is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd probably be pretty enlightening to see what they say versus what I think and
Yeah. Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So any last bit of part, was that helpful, by the way?
Yeah, that is helpful. Yeah, I think where I'm at the moment is like there is so much new stuff. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
finally committed to delegating. I don't
Yeah.
have any reservations anymore about doing it, but now I have to do it all, and I have a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people.
Oh, it's annoying. It's annoying. I just hired somebody a couple months ago, and I was like, I kept, because I'm the type of person, I'm like, I assume everybody's smart and intelligent and capable, but that's not really the case. Sometimes people need extra hand holding, right?
Yeah,
And you just have to commit to being patient
right.
with the process,
Yeah,
because once they do, you're like, oh my God, I haven't had to touch, like, I mean, I haven't had to touch making a podcast in 3 years,
yeah,
right? Like there are processes in place, and so much so that like the main person that edits this podcast just had a baby, and so she trained somebody else to do it. So like, you know what I mean? Like it's pretty awesome. So
that is
yeah,
awesome,
I would
man.
say commit to the process of delegating. Also too, what you could do is like, if you have a day in which it's generally slow, or a day where you feel either energetic or you're feeling
Tired.
low, whatever, just say, okay, I'm gonna, for 2 hours, this is what I'm gonna work on. But
Yeah,
like, it all starts with that list, the list of
right,
things that you love to do, things that you have to do but you hate, and then things you don't want to do at all.
right. I do like the idea of if it comes up and I'm feeling it, to just pull the
Yeah.
trigger and act on it, because you get a
Oh
lot more
yeah.
done.
Well, also
For
too,
sure.
you can also do it just when you just finish explaining something to somebody. Like, oh shit,
Right.
I should do it right now.
That's
And then
sick,
you
man.
just record it. Like, you know what I mean? Just do it right then and there. Do you have a
Yeah.
note-taking app?
On my phone, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I use Evernote, and you can organize a lot of stuff in Evernote. You can also use like iPhone notes,
Hmm.
to just keep a running. It's like, oh, this is something, like, you're, and there's so much. So
Yeah.
um awesome. So tell me, any last bit of parting advice for the Woodpreneur community?
um, be relentless. Don't forget about what you got into it for, because
Yeah,
that's the
it's
whole
true.
point.
That's a good
We
one.
kind of like build all these structures and, build the empire or whatever, but um, it's just been super important to me to keep track of like, why exactly are we doing this?
Yeah.
Because it's what we're spending our entire lives on. I don't spend more energy on any other one thing than this vision.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. And how can people get in touch? Website, Instagram?
Yeah, yeah.
What
There's all
is
the
what is it?
contact info on dancinggrains.com
Yeah.
and at dancinggrains on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Austin, for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad that we were able to get you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good talking to you, Steve.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks so much for listening to the Woodpreneur podcast, the #1 podcast for the business and marketing side of the lumber, woodworking, hardwood flooring, and sawmill industry. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating and review. You can also tap into our community by visiting woodpreneurlife.com. Once again, that's woodpreneurlife.com.